Hello, welcome, gorgeous beings of light. This is Elmara coming to you with miracle number 93 in the 100 Miracles in 100 Days project. Let us begin by just taking a long, slow, deep breath in and breathing out through the mouth, in through the nose, as deep as you can go, filling your tummy and your lungs up with air, and breathing out through the mouth and letting go of everything that's outside this moment. And I want you to continue this breath unless you begin releasing, meaning burping, yawning, sneezing. Then I would suggest you breathe in through your mouth and out through your mouth and release whatever's coming up for you. Sometimes you just hear gurgling in your tummy. Sometimes you start yawning, really deep yawns. That's a sign that the source codes that are embedded in my voice are releasing the stuff inside you that's outside of alignment. Excuse me, just finished my cup of tea. Probably not a good time to do it, but anyway, outside of alignment with your, anywhere that you are outside of alignment with your divine I am presence. So just breathe, continue to breathe for me, please. Now, we're at miracle 93, and I've put off telling you this miracle, and Source said today's the day to tell you. So this is not a pleasant miracle. God has saved my life on many occasions, many occasions. And some of them I've spoken about, and they weren't so unpleasant when I spoke about them. The blue-eyed miracle twins, miracle, back round number 40 or something. They're pretty special. But it didn't involve a lot of kind of, a curse to the guy who was trying to get up to nasty stuff, but it didn't involve a lot of nasty stuff as such. But sources reiterated they want me to tell you this whole miracle so you can see what it takes to get out of the poop if you're really sitting in it. So this miracle took about 18 months to come to a head, but I am so grateful for it now because it changed the way in which I lived my life. So I was living on the south coast of New South Wales. There is a miracle about the quantum frequencies when I moved out of my little place and took all my rose bushes with me and saved all my rose bushes and ran flat out for 7 hours non-stop. It's around miracle 18. It's called quantum frequency or something. When I was incapable of running for 7 minutes prior to that. So it's a lovely miracle if you want to go and have a listen to it. And I ended up in a place that says it was an alternative. It was called an eco-village, but oh my God, they had some serious trouble. So anyway, I didn't stay there very long. I didn't last very long because they were quite controlling. And one of the ladies I met there, her and I decided to get a beautiful home. It was a beautiful home in Wallika Lake, and it had 180-degree ocean views, and you could see the dolphins and the whales jumping in the ocean in front of us. And I had my office desk right up against a great big double window that went from more or less from the ceiling to the floor, and so it was such a lovely view to work in. I had mentioned to the lady that I was moving in with that if anything came up, we would have to talk about it because my energy is such that, if there's poop going on, it will come to the surface. That's my work. My gift to humanity is that I can invoke people's darkness, even if they've buried it from themselves for lifetimes, to the surface. The problem is, unless they're infinitely aware, most of the time they don't see it as their poop. They actually think it's me. That I'm doing it to them, and I could tell you hundreds of different stories about that. But anyway, she was like, yeah, I love you so much, nothing's going to come up. Well, that lasted about 5 weeks until her son was trying to push my dog off a wall because he was a daredevil. He would walk on walls and on posts when he was 6 foot off the ground, and he wanted Jack to do that, and Jack, Jack was terrified of those sorts of things, probably because of what he'd been put through before I got him. And Mama Bear L kind of went off my face at him, and that was the beginning of the end. But it was also, that she wasn't dealing with any of her stuff. She smoked pot 3 times a day. Now, if I had known that she was smoking pot, there's no way I would have moved in there. But I did not find that out until the night before we were due to move in, and we'd already signed leases, etc., etc. Anyway, for the most part, it was okay. I lived at one end of the house. Her and her son lived up the other end of the hallway. And she claimed to be the most spiritual person on earth, but she was only spiritual and nice when she was off her face, and the rest of the time she was yelling and screaming. So it didn't take too long for it to deteriorate into really something terrible. And about 5 months in, it must have been a bit more than that, because we had taken a 6-month lease and then re-signed it for another 12 months. And it was just after that the poop hit the fan, so to speak, and there was a screaming match, and she said that I had to get out. And I said, well, I will when I find somewhere, but I'm not going to go and get homeless, because I'm on this lease. Remember, it's half my home as well as half of your home. So, but by God, did she make it hard for me. Anyway, so for 5 months, and she would yell and scream at her son. She would stand outside my bloody bedroom door and scream at her son. We're on a 1-acre property. She didn't go down her end of the house. She just screamed. And I woke up nearly every morning with her screaming her guts out at her ex-partner. Him obviously screaming back, and it was just coming through the walls, so it was pretty disgusting. Horrible place to live. Even though we lived in this most exquisite environment, it was pretty damn horrible living there. So for 5 months, this is what I wanted to tell you here. For 5 months, I looked for somewhere to live. And when I found somewhere that was suitable, I didn't have the money to move. And sorry, I was just looking to see if the little dog was out. When I found somewhere to live, I didn't have the money to move. And when I couldn't find anywhere to live, I had plenty of money to move. This went on for 5 months until I finally was like, God, what the foxtrot is going on? Which occasionally happens in my journey when I yell at God. And basically, I just knew that I wasn't going to get out of there until I learnt what it was in me that kept attracting people who behaved, and she kind of really behaved almost worse than what my family, when I thought about it, it's like she's treating me in a disgusting way like my family does, like my family did when I was a child. And even though I thought I'd healed all that, there was obviously stuff that wasn't. So usually in the past, when someone would do something like that, I was like a blooming, I would just cut it out of my life like a Band-Aid, rip it off and get out of there. But by the time, and I'd done a lot of things with jobs and stuff. I'd worked in jobs where I'd had terrible bosses or whatever, but and I'd lived alone a lot. But this was kind of, I guess it was a deeper layer that Spirit was trying to teach me, because instead of just leaving the situation, I stayed then, and every time she did something that moved me out of my center, I raised my frequency. So if she yelled at me, I raised my frequency. If she was yelling outside my door, I raised my frequency. I learnt very early on not to confront her, because that's what she was looking for. She was just looking for someone to take her anger and her rage out on. But she did say some despicable things to me. I remember her once saying to me, I hate your effing guts. Yeah, I fucking hate you. And all this yuck spewed out of her mouth. And I remember another time when, like I was out getting my dinner and she starts spewing stuff, and I just said to her, oh, for fuck's sake, just shut the fuck up. And she was shocked because I answered back. She turned around and looked at me and said, don't you dare speak to me like that. And I said, well, if you can speak to me in the way you are, I can, and I will tell you to shut the fuck up. Don't speak to me like that if you don't want to be spoken to like that. And again, I just left the room and went back to my room. Now, I had a stock of tuna and biscuits and stuff so that I could lock myself in my room and not have anything to do with it. As soon as I made the decision, I feel like I might have told you this, but I may not have told you the whole story, how I got out of there, which is what I really want to tell you. But as soon as I made the decision to stay, she got a job and was gone from 8 in the morning to about 3:30 in the afternoon. So I would go out and get food about 2:30, 3 o'clock before she got home. Like go out, and that's how I got to be eating like at 3, having my main meal about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then would be in my room for all of the time after she got home. And so that went along nicely. I just kept raising my frequency. I just knew that one day I would have learnt everything I needed to learn, and I would be out of there. I looked for this miracle and I couldn't find it anywhere, but I just had this sense I might have told you, and I'm sorry if I did, but it's a good one worth telling. So again, maybe this is the one they told me to tell you. So on this particular day, I came out and I didn't see her sitting on the floor. Maybe it's just that I told someone else this miracle recently, because I do tell stories when I'm healing people to help them understand how to take the next step for them. Anyway, she's sitting on the floor, and I've gone to the fridge to get some stuff out, and I didn't even see her there until I heard this seething coming at me. I fucking hate you. I fucking hate your guts. My life's going to be so much fucking better when you get the fuck out of here. And she was just like, spew, spew, spew. And I just looked at her, and she's spewing at me, and I just looked at her and said, really? Do you really believe that? And out comes another barrage of shitty stuff. I said, let me tell you something. So-and-so, that's her name, not so-and-so, but, Dash for her name. Doesn't really matter, I could use the name, you don't know who she is. Let me tell you something, Alison. Your life is not going to get better when I leave. Your life, unless you deal with that shit that you've got coming out of your mouth, your life is going to get 1,000 times worse when I leave. I can still see her sitting there shaking her head, like flicking it, going, I'm dealing with my shit. I said, it sounds like it. Listen to the shit that just spewed out of your mouth. Not mine, yours. And I spun around on my heels and walked back into my room. Now, when I walked into my room, I had on my door, I had an etheric gold wall of light, so that when I walked through that, it completely dissolved any negativity I picked up in the rest of the house. Walked in, shut the bedroom door. And as I walked through the door and went in to sit at my office desk, breathe, I was just like, and you can breathe too, it feels like, take a breath, it's a big story. I was just like, God, that didn't touch anywhere. She had said the foulest things that anyone's ever said to me in my entire life, and it just didn't move me anywhere. And I went, oh my God, I think I'm nearly done. Am I nearly done, God, So about a week after that, so some things happened. Because our rent was $400 a week, which was twice the amount for the town we lived in, but we did live in a gorgeous home. And she would pay the rent one week and I'd pay it the next. And I can't remember how this happened, but anyway, a friend of mine had come up from Sydney and she had given me a cheque for $1,000. And she said, well, you should be able to just take that into any Westpac bank and cash it. Well, there was no Westpac bank in town. That's how much notice I took and how fast I would get out of town. The Westpac bank had been closed for 2 years in the nearest town. And the next town was like, an hour and a half drive away. So I took it to, so on the day that I'm going to leave, there was a guy that I was friends with, and I just said to him, A couple of weeks earlier that we had spoken about maybe getting together for a cuppa, and I said to him on that Monday, I rang him and said, listen, Paul, I don't know why I have the strongest feeling I'm not going to be here much longer. We better get together this week if we're going to have a coffee, because I don't think I'm going to be here much longer. That happened in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm going to town to bank the cheque. Well, I didn't know I was going to bank it. I was going to cash it, but the Westpac Bank had closed down 2 years earlier. As I'm leaving, Source says to me, I had 2 phones at the time and I had an old phone, and they told me to put that phone on record. So I put it, it was actually a hallway desk that I worked off, and it was the 4th drawer along that I had the phone in recording. And I don't know about you, but every time I put my phone on record, unless I have it on, 30 minutes stay on, then it goes off after about a couple of minutes. But I didn't know it was still recording. I just did as I was told, which is unusual. I put the phone on, put it in the drawer, closed the door, left to go to town to bank the cheque. I get home that night, don't think anything much of it. She wasn't in the house, but I could hear that she was outside around the fire pit with other people. And when I came out from my room, she had hidden the kettle so that I couldn't make myself a cup of tea. And I just, for whatever reason, lost it. I just lost it. Now don't judge the story here. Please stay here, because this is so important to the whole getting out of that house safely story. I can't remember what happened. Oh, that's right. The kid came in. I said to him, have you found the key? Because it was really windy where we were, and the doors were prone to slamming shut, and then you were locked out. So when that happened, I went and got a spare key done, and we put it outside. And the spare key disappeared, and I just said to her son, where's the key? Have you found the key? And he goes, no, I haven't. And I just said, oh, well, that's not good. We should really find that key. What about if one of us gets locked out? That's all I'm saying to him. She comes in and starts, I can't remember what she comes spewing in, and I lose it. This is because, although she used all of my furniture, my kitchen chairs and table and chairs and all of that stuff, she hides the freaking kettle so I can't make a cup of tea. And I lose it. And I go berserk. I go absolutely off my face, and I'm swearing at her. I said, I don't know why the fuck God told me to fucking live here with you, but you were the nastiest, most horrible fucking person I have ever fucking come across. And I'm going and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And I was almost like outside of myself going, what's happening here, And she was like, and she was just really nice, and, and the son kind of like, who's only 13, turns around and she's going shh, shh to him. And she goes, oh, and I'm just going off my nut at her. I am screaming my guts out like I'd lost it over the kettle. I'd put a saucepan on to boil water to make myself a cup of tea, but I'm going off my nut at her. And then she starts and says, oh, I'm having a house sitter come. And I'm like going, still screaming, what the fuck do we need a house sitter for? And she goes, oh, something or other. And I said, we don't need any fucking house sitters. I fucking live here. And she goes, well, I needed to feed the cat. I said, well, I can feed the fucking cat. And she's still going, oh, she's lovely, you'll like her. I said, I don't fucking care. If I wake up tomorrow morning and there's someone in my fucking house that I don't fucking know, I'm calling the fucking cops, and I'm going off my nut. I'm just like, what the hell is happening? Because I had trained myself not to react to her in any way, and I'm just going ballistic at her. This is really important to the story, so don't judge me yet, okay? Because it was like this demon had come in me and was going off my nut. And I walked back into my room and slammed the door so hard you could hear it all over bloody Wallaga Lake, I reckon. And then I realised that the saucepan was still boiling on the stove, and I walked back out and threw the bloody thing in the sink and turned the gas off and walked back into my room and slammed the door again. And then just sat there and went, oh, what the fuck was that about? Like shocked at my own outburst of behaviour. This is the reason why, guys. Next morning, Alison and her son leave at 5 a.m. in the morning to go on holidays. It was school holiday time, and that's why she'd been home on the Monday. And they left to go on a holiday. And what I was to find out was that the young girl who was coming to do the house sitting had been still sitting outside on the veranda, and my outburst had frightened her so much, she decided she didn't want to live and stay in the house, and that she was just going to come and feed the cat. But this is what happened prior to her coming on the Tuesday night to feed the cat. She was supposed to come morning and night. She did it. She came in the morning. I'm just kind of doing my work, and I hear Spirit say, listen to that recording, which went for about 4 hours. So I just put it on because it's just silent, and I'm still working till about 45 minutes into it. I hear the door open. Now, she never had access to my room. I had a lock, and I had the only key, and the only other key was at the real estate agent's. And you hear her come into my room, and you hear her going through my cupboards going, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that. Then she starts opening the drawers. I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that. Then she opens the fourth drawer, and she must have seen that it was recording. And I don't know why it was still on to be recording, because, usually, the screen drops off if it's not being touched in 10 minutes or 1 minute or something, usually. That's what it used to do. It was a Samsung. And you hear her slowly close the drawer and tiptoe out and lock the door. That would have been the reason she was saying to her son, stop, stop, because she would have thought I was going off my face because she'd been through my things, but I didn't know that yet. And she wasn't wanting to create a stir any bigger because she already knew what she'd done, but I didn't know that until the next day when I'm, listening to the recording because Source told me. A few hours later, one of her friends rings me and said, listen now, I think you need to be really careful. Alison's unstable at the moment. And she's telling people that she wants to slice your throat open because she wants to experience what that feels like. I went, oh, that's very spiritual of her, isn't it? So I ring the police, and the police, they get out of there. I say, I'm on a lease till it was the middle of the next month. I went, doesn't matter, just leave. And so I think I've still got nowhere to go. I'd been looking for all that time that I was there. I was still looking and still hadn't been able to find anything. I ring my best friend. She goes, why don't you try house sitting like we do? So I spent all of Tuesday and Wednesday looking for house sits, and eventually paid my $60 on the Wednesday. And it looks like I've got a house sit. And then that one fell through. It was already taken or whatever. So I spent all this time just writing to lots of people saying, did you find a house sitter? Can I help you with that? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't start packing up to Thursday morning, but I'm already madly packing. Again, like I love this bloody pack up madly at the last minute thing. Madly packing up, and Paul from Monday rings me and goes, oh, there's a message from him saying, oh, hey, Elle, I'm in Mystery Bay. He used to be one of these guys that gets up at 5 a.m, so he's left a message at 8 a.m, and it's now 9:15, but I'd been busy packing, and I rang him and go, oh, Paul, I'm so sorry, darling. I am leaving. Something's happened. I'm leaving. I don't even have time to make you a cup of coffee, let alone make you some scones. He says, oh, don't worry about it, Elle. I've got a kilo of prawns and some bread and some vinegar. How about I come out and help you pack, and we can have lunch together. I went, oh, great. So I'm only 5 foot high, as I'm sure I've told you 101 times. But a lot of my stuff was up on shelving in the garage, and I couldn't reach it. So Paul was fabulous because we just pulled the boxes down and taped them up so that was ready to go when Mick came to get me. And I booked Mick for Friday at 1 p.m. on Mick being Mick Removals, Mick from Narooma Removals or Mystery Bay Removals. And I booked in for 1 o'clock and keep running. So we got all that done and then I had lunch and then Paul left because it was just really the stuff in the house that I need to take care of then. When this girl came to feed the cat, I would meet her at the door with the spoon. So I was packing everything up in the kitchen with the spoon and the tin of cat food so that she could just go in and feed the cat. I could have fed the cat, but I mean, I'm guessing Alison thought she'd been such a bitch she really couldn't ask me to do it, but I wouldn't have not fed the cat. Anyway, so I would greet this girl, give her the spoon, and she would hand the spoon, and she came up with the other girl the first couple of nights. Then when they realised I'd had no beef with them and I was just being polite to them, she came by herself for the rest of the nights. But I was meeting her at I kept the hallway exactly as it was, but I was meeting her at the door so she didn't go down into the kitchen and could see that I was packing up because, of course, she would have rang Alison and she would have been there back home harassing me immediately. So when she'd finished, she goes, oh, I'll go wash it. I said, no, give me the spoon, I'll wash it. You can go. That's fine, thank you. And I would take the spoon and the empty can down and wash it in the only so that she didn't go into the kitchen. Anyway, that worked well. She came Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. Thursday, I'm almost packed up, got most of it done. Friday, Mick rings me, and I'm still looking for a house sit in all of this, somewhere to live. Mick rings me at about 9:30 in the morning and goes, hey, Elle, are we still on? I said, we're still on. I said, I have no idea where I'm going, Mick. I said, but yeah, come and get me. He goes, what do you mean you don't know where you're going? I said, I know where the stuff's going. I have no idea where I'm going. And I just knew that if I kept trusting that something would come together. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, I knew it was my time to go. I had this $1,000. The thing was that she had $800 of my bond money. So the fact that I hadn't had any money to pay the rent was significant because otherwise I would never, ever have got my $800 back. And so at least that was 400 of it, and I owed her about 300 for electricity, so I just wrote the rest of it off. But the 400, I just wrote to the agency afterwards telling them I'd made a run for it and the police had told me to and they could take that out of my bond money. But that'll happen after I left or whatever. But and so that was it. So I didn't pay the rent. I cashed a check and kept the cash, and I had money to get out of there. And but on the Friday, 1 hour after, about an hour or so after Mick rang, some people who had gone on holidays rang and said, no, we don't have anyone. But it was down in the Grampians, which was 1,000 kilometres away in Victoria. I think Source was just getting me the hell out of there, before, as fast as they could, and as far away as they could. It was so friggin' cold. Like I used to think that the South Coast was cold, but it had nothing, absolutely nothing on this bloody Grampians. It was like -3 degrees or something, and I spent most of the day just in bed with lots of rugs on me. I'd just go and feed those 50 chooks and collect the eggs and wash all the eggs and put them out on the bloody road and la. And anyway, and their son, who had a job, had to keep driving back every night to feed the animals and do the chooks, whereas and there was like, at one point, because he hadn't done it, there was like 50 eggs there or something. So I had somewhere to stay. And I left. I said to them I'd be there on the Sunday, but I was completely exhausted from everything. I was staying at the next door, and the next door was where I used to live. It was in the little cottage I used to live in on Mountain View Farm, because it was right next door to Leslie and Richard's, where my stuff went. And I ended up staying. She said, oh, you can stay for 2 weeks, but I didn't. I just stayed for 2 nights. I ended up staying an extra night because instead of leaving on the Saturday morning, I stayed and left on the Sunday morning, which put me behind. I was, a day late, but they couldn't find anyone to go to the Grampians in the middle of winter, because that's why they couldn't find anyone, because it was so bloody cold. But I left and I had theirs, and before I even finished that sit, on the way that I was driving down to that sit, I got another 2-month sit in Balan, which was out of Bendigo. Another freezing cold place they hadn't been able to find anywhere either. You know, that's why, because it's freezing cold in bloody Victoria. And that's why they all leave and go up north in the summertime and leave everybody else to do a house sit at their place or whatever. And I looked after like 3 dogs and 5 cats and 4 horses and 2 goats at that place for 2 months on a farm. It was fabulous. But by the time that sit finished, I was fully booked 11 months in advance. I'd only planned to do it for a couple of months until I could find a rental back on the south coast. And by the time that 11 months came around, I was fully booked for 18 months in advance after that, because I had such fantastic reviews from the people whose places and pets that I had looked after. And so I was basically technically homeless. But at least I had somewhere to live, and it was fabulous because, you know, it was really, I didn't have to pay rent, electricity, gas, and it gave me time in a non-pressured environment to find my feet again. And I also became aware that I ended up in places where I was leaving my light, because if you're from Australia, you'll know this, but overseas you may not. I basically worked from Ulladulla, Nowra, Ulladulla, all the way down past Melbourne by about 2 or 3 hours. And all of that area was the area that went up in fire. And we lost only like less than 10 people in those millions and millions of acres that were lost, and billions of wildlife was lost. And I was stuck in those fires in Ulladulla for 6 weeks, and I recognised there was a reason why I was going up and down that coast. There was about 10 hours between Melbourne and the south coast of New South Wales. On the day that I left, I drove down like halfway, and a friend of mine worked at the Lakes Entrance Bowls Club and made me a beautiful Thai beef salad. Then I got down to Melbourne, and my friend of 23 years cooked me a roast lamb. And then the next day, on the Monday, I drove out to the Grampians, which was another 2 or 3 hours further on, and I was safe. And I remember as I was driving halfway between Tilba and Lakes Entrance, I just burst into tears and sobbed. And I think it was that relief. At some point, I must have known that I wasn't safe, even though I didn't logically know it until her friend rang me and said, be careful. But my other friend gave me, because I'd always looked after their family and healed their children and everything for free. And the same with the lady who gave me $1,000. She was always bloody bringing people down from Sydney to be healed, all bloody rich people. None of them ever said, here's $20, Elle, or anything. Even $20, you know, she would just bring them, because she knew, oh, that's reminded me of another good miracle I can tell you tomorrow. She knew that they would be healed just from being in my presence, and I would always be completely exhausted after they left. And so when she paid me this $1,000, I didn't feel any guilt. I said to her, I'll give it back to you. She goes, no, you won't. It's a gift, Elle. It's a gift. I don't ever want it back, which was really, really sweet of her to do that. So, and then my other friend, who I'd also helped a lot because they were friends, I never charged her or any of her kids or anything, any money. She gave me $600. So I had $1,600. I was on my way, you know. Then, because I was through all of that and learnt everything, all clients started coming back. I started making plenty of money. I don't think, you know, that $1,600 that I gave her was in cash in my purse for months and months and months and months after that, because I had shifted through the stuff that was going on. This has turned into a very long miracle, I'm sorry, but I wanted to share with you. Sometimes the poop's hitting the fan because there is a higher place for you to go within yourself. There's a higher calling there for you. It was around the time, on the 20th of October, we moved into the house in the January, but on 2016, and on the 20th of October 2015 was when I'd made that quantum leap. And then in the November, I did another place where I ran flat out for 9 hours straight. I ran for 7 hours straight when I moved out of the cottage and the guy had poisoned my roses. The next, a month later, I ran for 9 hours straight. And there was just no way that I was going to be able to work in the quantum and all of that craziness. what happened next gave me an opportunity to just not worry about having to find money for rent. I could just be and just care for people's animals, which you would do if you were living in a house of your own anyway. Get up, feed the animals, walk them, whatever it is. But then I would have the rest of my day to live. And great things happened. It was in that time that my friend and their baby were told to terminate. I think that miracle's definitely there, and I send energy to that little boy every day. He was born small, but perfectly okay. I just had lots more time to be me instead of looking over my shoulder, wondering, or dealing with other people who were shouting outside my bedroom door, or because this woman and her son just regularly fought and be screaming at one another and slamming doors, and sometimes it was just so bad I had to get Jack and I out of there and go somewhere. Sometimes Jack was terrified and I'd see him just sitting there trembling, so you could see that it was bringing up horrible past memories for him as well. Breathe for me, please. But the miracle in this story is that I'm still alive. She didn't manage to cut my throat open. She did shortly after that threaten someone else, and the police came and picked her up and put her in a mental home, which is where she bloody belonged. But it also proves all you people that think that pot is not dangerous. She'd been smoking since she was 14 years old, and it was really just got to a point where it was frying her brain, and she was going crazy. Just breathe for me, please. So when poop is hitting the fan, so to speak, it's because there's an opportunity, whether it's that your finances are low, whether it's that you have people outside of you being nasty to you like she was, whether it's, doesn't matter what it is. If you stop going, why is this happening to me? And move that back to why is this happening for me? Like as I said, for 5 months I was just trying to move out because that was my motto. If people did the wrong thing, I just left. But I couldn't leave. And on top of that, she had a friend move in who then said she was psychic. And, she was saying, oh, you said this. I said, I didn't say a bloody thing. I didn't even speak to you. She goes, oh, I heard you think it. And I went, you can only hear to the level that you're at your self-love, And if you're as bloody powerful, and this is what blew it, I think, when she screamed at me to get out, I went, if you're as powerful as you say you are, how come you're so damn sick and almost dying? If you're so powerful, you would be able to heal yourself. And that caused a massive, massive fight between Alison and myself and her friend. And her friend moved out again, which was great because she was just living in the bloody lounge room and not paying any friggin' rent. I was still paying half the rent. I paid half the rent to take the main bedroom and have my own bathroom. And her and her son paid the other half and had the other 2 bedrooms and the other bathroom. So, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes our soul is trying to teach us something. I have no regrets about that time. It might sound like it when I'm telling you the story because I wanted you to hear the desperate state that I was in at times when I was there. But my life took off after that. I didn't pay any rent, electricity, gas, any bills, any Wi-Fi, anything. All I had to do was do my phone and petrol for the next 3 to 4 years. And unlike other people who were house sitting, I knew lots of people that were house sitting that were living in their cars in wintertime. That never happened to me once in those 3 or 4 years. Not once was I ever without a roof over my head. And there was times when it got really titchy. I think there's one there called a holiday, homeless and a free holiday, where it was right down to the wire, last couple of minutes, and someone still rang and said, here, come and stay here. Then I got to sit, and the lady woman tried to kick me out on the street. That's how I nearly was homeless that time, but I was still going, come on, God. I got to a point where I was able to trust and go, come on, God, where's my next house? Where's my next house sit? Where's my next house sit? And it came through at like 9 p.m. that night or something. So I learnt to trust, and so if life's not playing out the way you want it to, then the best thing you can do for yourself is start asking, what is this teaching me? Or, why is this happening for me? And just sit. What are you trying to show me? And breathe into that. Because I had no idea that Source didn't want me to leave. I had no idea that Source was trying to say to me, this woman's got all the crappy, horrible stuff of your childhood in her. And if you stay and just breathe and raise your frequency higher, then, you know, you will heal that stuff within you. So I didn't fight with her. I mean, I did in the beginning until I learnt that. And then, as I said, I just hid out in my room, which wasn't a bad thing to do. It was the size of a single garage. So it was a big room. I had my lounge, my books, my bed, and my office desk that looked out over this fantastic 180-degree ocean view, you know. And I was quite happy to live in there. I'm used to living in small spaces. It didn't bother. And I had a great big, huge double wardrobe, of which one side had food in it, in case I had a plate and a bowl and all of that, in case she came home in a foul mood, which was just about every day. But it taught me to stay in my center no matter what's going on outside of me. So if she was screaming at her son and it bothered me, I raised my frequency until it didn't bother me. And sometimes I didn't even hear her. But most mornings she would be screaming at her son from outside my bedroom door. She couldn't go down to her own bloody bedroom and do the screaming. She had to do it outside my bedroom door. And I was sure she was just doing it to evoke a response from me. I do remember once they were just screaming at each other, back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. And she was on the phone and she was screaming at her son, but she was on the phone. I didn't know, to her daughter. And I remember yelling out. I can't even say it with her going, shut the fuck up, in such a, that the noise just immediately stopped. And it scared the shit out of me where that roar came from. But I learned that I could do that, use my power to shut them up because they were going. So that was another thing that happened during that time. I learned about this power instead of just saying nothing, saying nothing, saying nothing. This particular day I'd had enough and I screamed so loud that they both shut up. Then I scared the shit out of myself and grabbed my bag and went into town and had a cup of coffee and a scone, jam and cream because I didn't know where that voice and that power came from. But I learnt so much, and it sounds like it's an icky story, but I learnt so much from living in that volatile situation. I learnt so much. It was such a powerful, powerful healing time for me because it healed a lot of the wounds from my childhood that were so deeply buried I didn't even know were there. And I want you to hear that. When something outside of you is amiss, if you're blaming, how many times do you hear people going, oh, these are narcissists, they're a narcissist, they're a narcissist, and then 5 minutes later they're in love with another freaking narcissist? Because they are attracting that kind of, that's what annoys me about that whole narcissist conversation. Everybody's going about, it's the latest bloody in thing to be pointing the finger at narcissists. But what about the 3 fingers pointing back at you? And what about you being an all-powerful, all-creative being who creates their own reality, or a victim? But you can't be both. You can't be both. Alrighty. I think we're done for today. That's a really, really, really big miracle. But I trust that you can hear that sometimes shit's happening because it's trying to raise your frequency higher. And it certainly did that for me. My life for the next whatever, my life's never been the same since. And I've never really attracted people who do that kind of crap to me ever again because I learnt my lesson. And I raised my frequency higher and I transmuted all that old stuff. So, alrighty. I am just going to send you a blast. If you want to know how to connect to the 5th dimension, just go back a few videos. It's on there, the first step of it. Or you can look for other videos on my YouTube channel that tell you how to do that. And if you want to learn how to be a powerful 5th dimension activator, the details will be below this video. But it's coming up for 44 minutes and I just want to give you just a tiny weeny 40-second blast of 5th dimensional energy to integrate anything that this has brought up for you in listening to it. And if it's brought stuff up for you, listen to it again and again until you come into balance with it. All right, you gorgeous beings of light. Love you, love you, love you, love you, and I look forward to being with you again tomorrow. Bye for now.